I realized I had to teach myself. The easiest way to teach yourself is to literally dive into it.
You're listening to the Kristof Lewis Podcast, a podcast where I have conversations with inspirational people. My name is Chris, but my family calls me Kristof. My goal is to have as many conversations as possible with people who have forged their own path by pursuing their dreams, making them a reality, all the while emitting positivity and sharing this knowledge with others. I seek these people out and share this information with you, proving to the world that you can do what makes you happy and do what you want for a living while being a good human being. We'll talk about careers, but we'll also cover any story that inspires. Let's do this while helping each other. Thanks for listening. I'm happy you're here. Hey, what's up, my friends? Welcome to the Kristof Lewis Podcast. This is conversation number 53, and I'm your host, Kristof Lewis. Thank you so much for being here with me today. As always, I'm excited as can be. I have two guests today. So this is something I've never done before. I had my first guest, Doodnauth, and my second guest, Fyffe. Now, they both worked on a movie together. Jay is a soul hip-hop musician, and now he's a director. And Chanel is an artist and a singer, and she sung on Jay's movie. It's an incredible movie. It's called Perspective, and it talks about mental health in minorities. And I believe that mental health is extremely important to everyone. Emotional intelligence, mental health, these are all things we talked about. These are all things that I think are very important for the well-being of society and human beings. And we talked about all of it, as well as his transition through life as a career musician into becoming a director. And I had an incredible time talking about them, and I absolutely know that you will benefit from all these topics that I've just described to you. So without further ado, welcome to the Kristof Lewis Podcast.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We've been talking for a long time, and we were connected through another mutual friend, and I was so excited to get in touch with you for many reasons. One of the reasons is you're a film director, and when I started looking into you even deeper, you were a musician, a soul hip-hop artist, and I wanted to start off by saying something that I found really funny. So I was listening to the music, and I was jamming out, and I was like, wow, this is really good, and I'm not saying I didn't expect it to be good, but it is really good. And then I went over to my wife, and I said, hey, are you listening to this? And she said, yeah, like, it sounds really good. I'm about to go run. Can I put that in my earphones? Because I'm like, it makes me want to go. It's getting me moving. And I was like, that's the guy I'm about to talk to. And she's like, get out of here. So I just want to say, man, like, I know you are a director as well, but your music, it just, like, when I listened to it, it was phenomenal. So I want you to know, like, all the way, I watched, some of what you've done as well as a director, and it's phenomenal what you're doing. And I'm just so appreciative of the time you are giving me to be on this show. So thank you for being here.
No, thank you, man. Thank you. And I think people like I guess the listeners involved need to understand is like what's really cool about, like, it's literally two passionate people you're listening to. So one of them followed their passion, the other one did the exact same thing but completely different passions. And that's what I love, when people could just meet by doing that. That's the most beautiful thing. So thank you. Back to you.
Thanks, man. And so you were this hip-hop musician, and then you evolved into this director for film. And I know you've been doing hip-hop for a while, like all the way back, till like 2003 or something. So you've been doing it for a minute, probably since you were a kid.
Oh, wow, you went back.
Yeah, man, I went back. I like looking back. But I'm always interested in the shift that people do, where you were so, and I'm sure you still love being involved in the music scene, but I know being a director has just fully engulfed your life, and you are really trying to help people with what you're doing. And I touched on it a little bit in the introduction, but you are the director of the short film Perspective, which talks about, or shows, I should say, mental health awareness in minorities. And I thought that was so important. I love niche stuff like that just really want to help certain people. And it was just so amazing being able to, you allowed me to look into some of what you were doing, and my wife and I were able to watch some of that, and it was just so emotional and so real. And that's one of the things I love about film, is that, and I read something about you about, it's not just like learning in the classroom. You get to learn by this vision. you get to see and you get to feel the emotion that film only lets you feel, as opposed to maybe just sitting around and learning that way. So I want to know, like, yeah, I want to get back to what I initially said is like being a musician, and then I know you did this in film school, but how was that transfer for you, this transition from what you had done growing up into what you're doing now?
So the transition, yeah, great question, Kristof. I came at perspective, first of all, for the people listening, is like I wasn't a director before. Like I didn't think I was a director. I think we all have this idea when you look at a movie, you look at like anything. You look at any movie kind of when you're just chilling out at dinner, and you look at like oh my gosh, or you see like a Spielberg thing and something blow up, right, or some Michael Bay stuff, and it's this thing where like when I was a kid, I was like, man, directing, like that's such a big job, like that's such a hard thing to like figure out, right?
Yeah, you like blow it up in your head.
Yeah, exactly. You blow it up in your head. And what happened is that going to school, this is the crazy part, going to school actually taught me that you never really needed to think like that. You are looking at the final product, right? Sure. No one ever gets to like witness the work or effort unless you look up a behind the scenes thing of a movie, right? Yeah. Or like how they ended up making it. So I said, you know what? I literally said to myself, let me do a movie based on music. And I said that before perspective. I wanted the film to be about I always wanted it to be about mental health, because I just think you need that. Like I'm 25. Like from 20 to 30, you get this giant shift in in life.
You're absolutely right.
Like everything, car, right. House, payment, a baby, maybe.
Yeah.
Right. So, but what happens is that I realized that to make that shift, I realized I had to teach myself. The easiest way to teach yourself is to literally dive into it. You have to educate yourself a little bit. People mistake you have to do all these years to become a director. That's the thing. I just decided to do this because it was one of the things was mental health is huge in artists, right? And like for me, I literally can only make music if I feel good. If I feel obviously music comes with the struggle, but the actual act of recording, actually getting your vocals in check and being good, it comes all in the mind. It's not just having a cold or like getting rid of a cold. You can feel all good and then you just can't like project just because something's bothering you. So anyways, I made that shift. The film perspective you can watch, I try to make it so you can watch it even if you were blind. You can hear the tension in the music. That's awesome. And then flip that, you can watch perspective if you were deaf. So the visuals are somewhat strong.
I didn't know that, and that's incredible that you created something like that, thinking about it not just as through your eyes and through your ears, thinking about it from other people's perspectives, and so they can enjoy it that way. It's pretty cool how you came at that, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you, man. And it like I said, it comes with just doing it. Like I didn't know everything that comes with directing. I just I had a couple businesses that I ran before. Yeah. And then I was like, well, I understand how the film industry works, and I've been on a couple sets. And I'm saying this to the viewers, like a couple sets. That's all I had to get my ambitious idea out there, and said I could do this. And then as we went forward, we had a sold out premiere, the first thing I've ever done in my life to have a giant awesome. Recognition by this was I guess my work, right?
And not even just sold out. I want to go even further. We talked about the federal government recognizing the movie now. Dude, that's awesome. And I just want to stop you for 1 second, if nobody caught this, you didn't have experience in this. You just knew a little bit initially, and then you just started educating yourself, and you just went all in because you were so passionate about it and you really wanted to learn it. So you don't have to think, you were saying, oh, you see these incredible movies, you think these people have all this experience, and they do up to that point because you're seeing that external product, that finished product. But there was so much leading up to that. Everybody started learning somewhere, and you did the same exact thing. And then now we're talking about sold out premiere, recognized by the government. Dude, that is nothing that you can really wrap your head around when you're initially thinking about, but I actually want people to start wrapping their head around that initially, because this is feasible outcome for anybody as long as you start.
It's feasible, and it's like I'm literally, after this podcast, I'm going to make some music at my art director of Perspective's house. And what I did, like, say me and you talk, right? We decide to make something, right? We get a couple Skype meetings going, we get a meeting going, maybe down the line, and we make it happen, because I think people kind of forget, like, passion does drive you, but like it can also like break you if you do something and it doesn't turn out right the first time.
Yeah.
If you're a little bit, like, I guess weak is the wrong word, but just kind of like distraught after the first idea, don't be. That's why I have like two other people that look over the work, right? So it's not just me looking up the storyboard, it's the DOP looking into it. You have them help. Like, they like being involved in that. It's not all about money. It's not about, it can easily just be like, hey man, I know we didn't talk about this, but do you mind looking over the script just a couple of times, maybe, like, or just one time? Do you have a couple, like, different things you want to add on to it?
Yeah.
That's just, if someone asked me for that and they didn't pay me, I would give it to them, because I value your words, right?
Absolutely, yeah. You want to use the people around you, use the people that are impassioned about what you're impassioned, and you're exactly right. If you need something, I'm going to help you. And we wanted to help each other with this podcast. I want to learn more about you, learn more about your film. You want to learn more about the podcast and helping people in that way, getting your word out that way. And it's mutual. So we just want to connect because we want to help other people. You want to help other people through your film, mental awareness. I think that's so important. We talk about emotional intelligence all the time on the podcast, and all these things, everything we want to do in our life just starts up here in our heads. So that's another reason why I loved your film, because it really reached out to people that way. And it just, like, again, man, is so emotional, and to be able to be taken into it like that, you just sucked in, man. And I really, really enjoy what you did, man.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's available right now for rent. If people go to, like, Perspective the short film just on Instagram, it's just on our bio. We actually just made it. It's a limited time offer, like, limited time thing, because, like, I think there's something a little bit bigger that's coming with it. It might be involved in a commercial. Hush hush on it. But we might have to take it down. But, like, the biggest thing for people to realize is, like, I think in minority communities it is a little different, and I don't think these big websites like mental health institutes per se in the States or Canada, I'm not just talking about just the States, I don't think they capture that. Like, it is different. A lot of in minority communities, it's about tradition. So it might go like, oh, don't go to your doctor about this. It might catch up to Aunt Sheila or something, you know, and then it turns into a whole thing. That little tiny thing, you'd be surprised. You'd be like, oh, okay, I guess I don't want my family to know. But then you're like, wait, what? I haven't seen Aunt Sheila in like 5 years.
Yeah, you got to take care of yourself. And like I was saying earlier, you got to take care of your mind. It starts all in your head. So if you're not able to take care of that because of things that your family believes in, because maybe that's the way your culture is, then maybe you need to step outside that for a second. And I think it's okay. Like, it's not going against your family. It's not going against your culture, but you just need to be aware of what the circumstances are and aware of how everything in life is affecting you, and then be able to maybe shift your perspective just a little bit to be able to figure out what's best for you. And then maybe if you shift your perspective and you're able to articulate that to your family, then you can open up their eyes to something new that they weren't seeing before, and maybe they can take care of their brain like you can, their mental awareness as well.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. See, and it's that step out that made me do the movie too. Like, I was like, great, I do music videos. I was like, let me take a step out. Let me jump out of this and do something kind of that really, really, really tests me. And oh my Lord, this tested me for a while. Like, it was supposed to do at least a professional, like Michael Bay guy would probably said, like, this should at least have taken like maybe 6 or 7 days. This took 4 days on a very tight budget. Right, so it was just something I took some time, and I did take a little bit less of time than the regular, but I figured it out, and it is a step out again of it's time management, it's passion, it's all that mixed in, you know.
It's all these things, and you said you stepped out, and another thing I like is that people sometimes can be scared to step out and actually take that very, very first step to do what they want. So if somebody like just approached you, maybe about the film, and maybe you've been asked this question before in regards to that, but hey Jay, like, I kind of know what I want, but I'm just so scared to do it. I'm not sure if I can take that first step. You have already taken the first step into something that you're completely impassioned about. what would you tell somebody like that so they can move forward and do what they love?
I would say write down a list of 20 things that you have to do to get started. Now take 10 of those off. That should be a top 10 priority list. That you should aim to figure that out. And a lot of it, number one for me was first of all, come up with a plan to pitch to sponsors.
Okay.
And then the second one was make sure to get sponsors and follow up. And a lot of people starting out, they're like, oh, what about the money? Dude, I didn't have any money. I didn't have money at all, right?
There's so many ways to do it. I mean, you can like do GoFundMes, you can ask family, friends, like people will help you. You know what I'm saying? People will help you. Like, don't discount that. And if you don't ask these people and look to even start, then you're not going to get that funding at all.
No. And another thing was I was like, listen, man, I'm at an age where like I want to do something. Like people should recognize their age, first of all. Like me and you both have a giant thing. Like when we're older, it's cut or dry. It's very like yeah, you can be definitely like an actor or something like in an older thing, but like in an older setting. But when you're young, and middle age type of thing, we can literally change things. I'm going to be going into schools and start talking about mental health and stuff like that because I'm young. I recognize what I could do just literally by breathing. I'm just me, you know? So I could do stuff with just being the age that I am. People sometimes go, I know when I was young, I was like, oh man, I can't wait to drive. I can't wait to do this. And then when you're older, you get a job, you're like, oh, but then you realize where your passions lies and you use the advantage of being a certain number, and then you work.
Yeah, absolutely. I think age is something that people think about maybe too much in the sense like I don't care what age you are. Like people are like, maybe I'm too old to start this, maybe I'm too young to start this. Either like it doesn't matter, dude. Like all that matters is if you want to do something, go do it. That's all I care about. Like age isn't nothing. People complain about or are worried about, I should say, about maybe I don't have enough experience to do this because I'm too young, but it doesn't matter. Like all I care about is the amount of time that you've put into the years that you've lived, and that's what really formulates this person. Like you could have a 20-year-old that's had incredible experiences, done so much with their life, and just had so much more experiences that somebody that's twice their age, 40, that's just been not doing anything their entire life.
Exactly, yeah. And it turns, when you get to 40, you're like, okay, let's see what happens, you know? And maybe you do take those 10 more years to, like, still figure it out, which is fine.
Yeah.
But for me, I have to figure this stuff out now, man. Like, I got music to work on. I got more ideas for videos. And you know what's so funny? People always tell me, even the group I work with, tell me I am, like, one of the most ambitious people. And this is after I did the movie. But the thing is, it gave me so much confidence to literally figure out exactly how I want things.
Sure.
So if I want like a little shadow on this set, or I was just on another video set just because they found out about perspective and they wanted me to help in a PA job. And I said, cool, let me go ahead. And I started networking. And it was just because people seem to forget, like, when you jump into this stuff, it's not just like the visuals or all this stuff looks amazing and then you talk about that to other people. Like if you're afraid of talking to people or you're just thinking your art is going to speak for itself and you don't have to do anything more, well then you're wrong, because that's how people work together. They talk to each other and they try to mesh an idea that they can possibly work together, right? Like for me, I want glowing LEDs and in a video per se, for example, right? And like maybe like 4 years ago, I thought that was like nearly like very, very, very hard to get, because I was like, man, how am I gonna figure this out?
Yeah.
Lo and behold, 2 days ago, I met some girl on set that dealt with that, and I was like, this is perfect. I was like, this is exactly what I needed. And now that I gave myself time, because I did a music video and a movie, I put it all together in my head, and I'm like, no, the vision, it stays still the same. There's still glow in the dark stuff, but the actual attitude towards it and the way I'm combining all these different things changes.
The attitude, exactly.
Exactly, changes the attitude, and then the vision comes back into play, but even more powerful. And that's what people need to understand. You grow with this stuff, even if it will work out. People say even if it doesn't work out, a lot of this stuff ends up, you work on yourself. Even if you don't like get those numbers that you want, that's fine. You'll understand how to do it after. Yep. It just, you have to take a first step. How do you get up there, right?
Jay, that's a phenomenal answer. It's a phenomenal answer. I appreciate that. It will work out. Like, if you don't give up, if you always are relentlessly getting after it, it will work out. And like you said, people are going to help you, and you meet incredible people along the way. And I know one of those incredible people that you met was the singer in your movie doing your credits, and she's an incredible artist. So I am going to do something. We are going to do something we've never done before, and we're going to bring somebody in. We're going to guest star a guest on the guest conversation here, and I think it's going to be really awesome. I want to talk to her, and I would love to bring her in. So let's do that. All right, so we have Chanel here. She joined in, so now we have the three-way call going, and I'm so excited. We've never done this before, but Chanel was a singer in the movie that Jay was the director for during the credits. She's an artist as well, so she sings, of course, and she's a painter, and I want to talk to her for so many reasons, because one of the reasons is I want to know, Chanel, thank you for being here, but how do you use art to be able to help you, like your mindset, and how do you use that potentially to help other people as well, or how can people use that to help themselves?
So for me, I can honestly say that I'm not always motivated to do art.
Yeah.
But I push myself to do it. So there was a time in my life where I was going through depression, and I was just not sleeping well and just very exhausted. So I decided, you know what? I can't just sit around and do nothing. So like, I love to do art, so why don't I try to do that? So I just started painting and drawing, and I did a whole bunch of art, and I really, really let my mind go, and I felt so free after doing it. And then I was able to share it with other people, and the reaction that they got made me feel good about what I was doing, and made me feel like, okay, yes, this is something that I should be doing, and I should do more of it. And it's not always easy, because sometimes the mind gets the best of you. Sure. But when I do force myself to be like, okay, yes, I'm going to do this, and I do it, and then people are reacting to it in a good way, so it uplifts their spirits.
Absolutely.
Then it makes me feel good as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like what you said, like, you don't always have the motivation to do it, and I think that's important, because I think sometimes people think they always have to be motivated to do something just because they are impassioned. They love what they do, but like me, I do a lot of video editing because I'm a podcaster, so I'm not always wanting to do that. Like, plain and simple. Like, I don't always want to be doing the behind the scenes stuff. Like Jay and I were talking, there's so much behind the scenes stuff that does it, but you do it anyway because you know the result that you're going to have when you do it. And then like your result is other people love what you're doing, and that makes you feel so much better about sharing it and doing it. So like for me, I capture that feeling like that you just described, and I kind of use that as like I reach in my pocket and I grab that out next time I'm not like really feeling like I want to do it again, you know?
Yeah, that's true. And like I feel like even like some people are like, oh, I can't do art, I'm not good at it. And I'm just like, well, it doesn't matter how good you are. Like, just do it. Just try it. And there's so many different paint nights. I mean, I don't know if they're free ones, but I mean, that could be an option too for people to use that as an outlet for themselves.
Yeah, I think it doesn't matter like how quote unquote good you are. If you enjoy it, go out and do it. And like again, Jay and I were talking about like you're by default, because you continue to do it, you're going to get better at it. If you enjoy something, you're not going to care like how much time you spend on it. You're not going to care like what the result is initially, maybe, because you enjoy doing it. And then like by default, you're just going to get better and better. And then the better you get, the more you're going to do it, because the result is just getting better and better.
Yeah, it's completely true. I believe that.
So you would say like your mental health state be like before and after you started doing art and singing, do you see like a huge shift, and how do you feel like that changed your mental perspective?
It helped me to feel more positive about myself and my self-image, in regards to saying like, yes, I can do this, and yeah, I'm not always motivated, but I can still try the best that I can do. And it helps me to feel healthier in a sense too as well, because it helps to release those negative feelings, and it helps me focus on that task at hand. So I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm just thinking about creating at that moment in that time. So it keeps me in the present. Because sometimes in my mind, I'm thinking about the future and my past, but when I'm doing art, I'm just thinking about creating at that moment in that time.
I love that you said that. I truly do. I think a lot of times we get wrapped up in the past, which is kind of like just makes you stressed because it's already happened and you can't do anything about it. Or again, on the inverse, you get wrapped up about the future because you can't do anything about it yet. So when you're physically doing something that keeps you in the moment, like you've just described, I think that what you've described is that helps relieve all that tension, all that stress, and you're able to just focus on exactly what you're doing. Like for me, running or working out, like it's really difficult in the moment, and that's like when I'm running, that's all I'm thinking about. I'm like huffing and puffing, trying to catch my breath. So like I'm not thinking about before or after. I'm just thinking about how I feel. I was just thinking about pushing myself. So I really love your answer there. Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Chanel, thank you for sharing that. What's beautiful about like when I loved kind of when Chanel sang at the end of the movie. To me, I had to have that put in there because there's some sort of like me and Chanel have worked on music together. We have like a subset music group, and there's a beautiful there's a beautiful mix between struggle in her voice and pain, but still like there's beauty in that, and there's something in the way that she just the way that she talks. Like if you meet her in person, you'll kind of get the gist. But she's an awesome person, and there's something beautiful about that in terms of the way someone sounds vocally.
I agree.
And that to me adds to the essence, especially at the end of the movie, where a lot of people even ask like if they do see it, if there's a part 2, and that's kind of the beauty of it. It's like we were kind of introducing even that new voice at the end to kind of maybe there is something different at the end, and that's the whole point. I think at the end of a movie per se, at the end of this particular thing, maybe it's not really an end. Maybe it's a start to something new. Maybe you hear something new in your head.
That's a good point.
That's the whole point.
That's a good point.
Right? And it was Chanel's a very soulful voice, and she does a lot of things she can tell you. But she's a really great artist kind of overall, and it was a beautiful addition to have her.
Thank you.
And that's like what goes back to like Jay and I were talking about, when you love what you do, you really tend to start meeting people that also are very impassioned about what they do, and you all can contribute to each other's passions. And I think that, like we were talking about him and I being on this podcast together because we both want to help people, and you talked about helping yourself and other people through your art and, through your singing in the movie. That helps so many people, like we were just describing. It helps implant this vision in people's minds. And again, like how you just said, just because it's the end, this gives way to a new birth and a new beginning of something else potentially. But that ends what you created. However, now it leaves the opportunity for the listener or the viewer to create something of their own, something new for themselves.
Exactly, yeah. Every person has a story.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't do this typically, but I read something that I really enjoyed. You were quoted of saying, everyone has a story. We can all come together as one and bridge the communication gap about mental health. Why I really like this, I mean, there's a lot of things that I've read that you've written, a lot of things we've already discussed, but I like this because we just talked about this with Chanel, coming together. And to me, there is no way that I could have done this podcast for 1 year without other people. There's no way. If I wouldn't have collaborated with everybody that I've collaborated, people like you all, people that have helped me, like when you were talking about being a director, you had no idea what you were doing initially. I didn't know what I was doing initially. I'm sure Chanel didn't know what she was doing initially when she first started drawing and singing, and creating art. But that's the beauty of it, because it leaves so much open to be able to do what you want. And then when we come together as one, as you said, it helps so much. We just be able to create, and it not only it helps each other, but I think when you come together with somebody else, like in this situation right here, it just gives a living, breathing example of encouraging other people, the listeners and the viewers, that they can go out and they can collaborate with like-minded people that want to do what they want to do. And then, like, the more it just catches on. The more people that do that, the more people that do that. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I love that quote, man.
Yeah, it's beautiful what you just said. That's the whole point, is that it was more so like the communication gap between mental health, I think, even towards something like TV, or like when you look at TV, I thought the biggest thing to me that stood out was something that scares you on television. And I'm not talking about like a horror film. I'm talking about like a commercial, like something you never want to see happen is when Chanel, I don't even know if I told you about this, but do both of you remember that commercial where the wife answers the door, right? And she opens it and it's raining and it's two officers, and one has their hat, like he's bringing his hat down, right? And Kristof is nodding right now, but one officer has his hat down, and she turns around and the boy comes in the room with a glass of milk. Now, when she turns around, she's obviously about to say something. That's bad because her face is grimacing. And then the little boy drops the glass of milk and it shatters into a million pieces. And this scene goes entirely in slow-mo. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm. I do not.
Yeah, so no. I haven't seen that, but as you were describing it, I was envisioning it. And it just breaks my heart just listening to a commercial that you just described. Like, that's really sad.
That's sad, right? Because what you get from that, like, somebody obviously like got hurt or at worst died, right? And to me, I just think, like, I was like, why is mental health like even like Cam H or even like these other things? I feel like they're doing it in a more so like you sit down therapist kind of talk.
Sure.
Like I feel like it should really, really wrench you emotionally. That's why I think that commercial is literally timeless, because I can look at it and I can feel something, and then I can probably have a nightmare, the next day just because of that. And it's so crazy to think of. And I thought to myself, well, I want to bridge that gap. There's a gap there if you kind of see it. And maybe it's just an artist thing. Maybe I'm just like being an artist, right? Like I'm just a singer, right? Like I thought it was just that, but I thought these creative ideas that I had could be put to way more use. So hence that's why we're talking to commercial companies right now. But the idea behind it is just to bridge the gap between that emotional feeling that you have when you were just watching a damn commercial, right? It was that, and then bridging that with like your family and seeing that, what if your interracial family saw something on the TV, that dealt with something exactly in that minority communities, like a black woman and a white guy, and the kid, a mixed kid, and then something happens within the family and in mental health involving, right? But it's in front of the family watching at dinner time. Sure. You see, like that to me is powerful, because then they go, imagine something happened just at home and everyone just came home and was eating dinner together, but no one was talking, right? And it was like, yo, we just went through that. Like, exactly. That's relatable. That relates past
exactly.
the TV.
That's what resonates with people. You're exactly right, and that's why we need to have creators like what you all are doing. Is we need to, because if like I can watch a commercial or a movie or whatever about somebody else, like you described, maybe somebody that doesn't look like me, and it will resonate me to a point. But if we're continuously creating content that reaches everybody, then somebody's bound to see the content that was made for them. And then when it sees them, it resonates on that emotional scale, like you were kind of describing, because when you get emotionally involved in it, then you're really going to get wrapped up into it, and you're really going to connect to it. And then, like you said, depending on what the angle is of the commercial or what the director is trying to do there, that's really going to help with them. And I completely agree with what you said on there.
Yeah, thank you. Where
do you guys see this going? I know you said sometimes a movie ends and it leaves the viewer kind of to make up the next part, but between the two of you, I don't know. I mean, you probably discussed this maybe, quote unquote, behind the scenes for the listeners, but where do you all see this going? You going to create? Do you think you're going to create more movies? Or are they going to be different movies, not just about mental health?
It's funny because after Perspective, I ended up working on with another director. His name is Rob Camo, and we actually made a horror short film on mental health. So it ended up being something separate.
Sure.
But yeah, let's. Right now, speaking, I haven't even really talked to Chanel about this either. But I see it going right now into it's kind of like a sit down and think phase. Like I'm at this point where I think a lot of people see it and want to help or want to see where it can go. So we, as I said before, we're going to possibly be looking into like some commercials using possibly the movie or even the actors in them. Yeah, but I see it going far places, man. We're trying to actually push this to one of our sponsors is going to try to help us to push this to Argentina. I forget the other two countries, but it's fairly new. And mental health is like new in these, third world countries.
Mm-hmm.
Mental health is still being like introduced this day to now Canada and the US, right?
That's the point I was going to make. Like, I feel like it's not even being talked enough about in countries like this. So I can't imagine how it is in other countries,
Yeah. And it's even like my parents are from Guyana. Where are you from, Kristof?
So I was born in the States, but I lived in Hungary for a little while. So my name's pronounced Kristof. But I actually, okay. So I lived in Hungary for a little while in Budapest. My mother is Hungarian, and my father's from the States.
That's awesome. And Chanel, where are your parents from?
My parents are from Jamaica, and I was born here. So, yeah.
See, so it's a giant multicultural like thing we got going on, right? And it's like, imagine we put mental health like all like in those places, Hungary, Jamaica, Guyana. If you put those things before, right? Then they're introduced to something brand new. And then what's the first thing as a kid that you associate something, right? Like if I see something blue as a kid, I'll first of all go to the sky, right? So now I feel like if we introduce this type of idea or film
absolutely
into these groups of kids and communities and young adults and even adults and grandparents, they go, oh, interesting. Like I was dealing with this, maybe whatever. So as a kid sees it, they associate that to, oh, boom, perspective. Like I was just dealing with that, right? It's like, and now hopefully they understand the message, right?
No, I completely agree with you. It reminds me of a conversation I had. I believe it was number 36 with Inez Barberio, and she was an emotional health. I don't know how she describes it, but she deals with emotional health, and she specifically spoke towards teaching kids at a young age. And why are we not like? I didn't get that at any place in my school. Like in formal education, I was never introduced to emotional health or anything like that, emotional intelligence. But if we implement that at a young age, then that's, like you said, a kid thinks blue, they see sky or whatever, But if somebody gets that implemented them at a young age when the minds are so pliable.
I work in a school right now, and I feel like, as you said, like when I was growing up, like there was nothing about mental health. Like there was nothing. I can say that. But now I feel like they're finally starting to realize that they need to have programs in the school that are dealing with mental health. And I can see it happening in my school. Like there's, they're trying to do meditation for the kids after lunchtime for like a minute or two or something like that. So they're starting to have like the little conversations.
That makes me happy to hear.
So yeah.
No, I'm glad you brought that up. So I have she's almost a month old now, so we just had a kid. So these are things that I think about. Thank you so much. These are things that I think about a lot more now. So I'm really happy to hear. Is that in Canada or in the States though?
That's in Canada.
That's in Canada. So we need to move to Canada. But that's incredible. And, I'm sure, like I was saying, I think about that stuff a lot more because like Jay was saying, like you think about or you resonate with stuff that pertains to your life. So if you see something that, wow, that's like me. So now I have a kid. So now I pay attention more to that stuff. So you saying that gives me a lot more hope because I know how I'd at least like to raise my daughter. And I'm going to do my best. I'm going to have conversations with her like this on a different level, but try to teach her these things like I'm sure you do in your school and we all try to do. So that is what I'm going to try to do. And it's not only for adults. That's like, I'm so glad we brought this up. It's not only for adults. If you have kids, talk to them about this stuff. Like, all this mental health stuff deals, like, and I don't want to get, like, super crazy, but, like, there are a lot of incidents, especially in this, you know, we talk about in the States, but all over the world, you know, kids come into school, they do very bad things. And, you know, I'm not those parents. I'm not in any of those situations, but from an outside perspective, like, I think, and generally speaking, if we paid more attention to the mental health of our children and the emotional intelligence of our children, maybe we wouldn't have as many issues like that. And that's just a drastic example that, you know, is what it is. But I'm just saying there's a lot of other examples where people get upset in life, and maybe if we paid more attention to this at a young age, then we could start to not eliminate, but just make it a lot easier for people as they grow up, because they grow up with these things instilled in their mind. How do you guys feel about that? Like, do you think it would help maybe not, again, eliminate, but lessen these severe outcomes we may see? I mean, I don't want to get too political, for the record. I don't ever on this podcast, but I'm just using that as an example of things that maybe happen with concerning mental health. I mean, I can bring it back to that, but things concerning mental health, I think we all would agree that if we implement it at a young age, then we could see better results in the future.
Yes, I do think so. I think children need to learn how to deal with their emotions. And I think sometimes they don't have an outlet, or they don't know how to express themselves. So, like, they keep these emotions until they get older, and then they're like, okay, why am I acting this way? Or parents or adults are like, why are they acting like this? And then they finally figure out later on, after they really talk to them, it's like, there was this incident that happened, and this and this and this, and then nobody talked to them about it.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah,
no, that's a whole other thing. Like, I think emotional intelligence has to come from the parent asking how the kids. It's more than just like asking how the kid's day is. It's like it's like, okay, great. Wait an hour after dinner and, like, go hang out with the kid and see. That's when I feel like when people are fed, they're like, especially food. Like, after you're eating, you're done eating, you're kind of, you know, done moving around for the day, you time to relax. But if something was really bothering you, it wouldn't be like, oh, he's just hungry. Oh, they're just, you know, they just make these assumptions and stuff like that. That's the thing I feel too. And if you look at it from the emotional intelligence thing that you were saying, is that if you don't start, like, as soon as possible, it's gonna come out in such a bad way later. And whether that be even just even some days, just a burst of like, just emotion, which means just someone's, like, super happy, or just, like, you know, maybe they haven't let that out in so long, and someone calls them on it, like, wow, you're so happy. But for them, it's like, I guess I am. Like, I didn't really notice. Yeah, because they had other stuff on their mind. So I think the biggest thing with emotional intelligence and mental health is to, when you have friends or family or even people you don't know, even out on the streets, smile at them. Like I love that. Be nice to them. You have to live in the same world as them. They have to go home and maybe deal with something way worse, you know? Yes. Like, maybe they got to put down their dog tomorrow. Like, a smile helps them, man. And, like, I've been down in the dumps, and I've seen I saw a random stranger smile at me one time, and I was, you know, I went in my car after the subway, and I was like, I just sat in my car for a little bit, and I was like, maybe this is, it's fine. Like, I don't have to catch up on my schedule. Another day is another day. Like, calm down. That little tiny thing, he didn't even do anything to him.
That's crazy.
To him, it might seem that. But for me, it actually made a difference. And, you know, and then what was it? The next, I think a year passed. And this is pretty random, but, like, I remember I was feeling really bad going into another subway for some reason. It was always the subway. And this girl gave me her parking pass for the day. That simple act of kindness. And I was like, wow, like, because she didn't need it, right? And I was like, I made sure to have the best day ever just because she did that. So it is all emotional intelligence. Absolutely. Learn to be able to control that, and learn to be able to, like, at least help that for your kids. And I think that's the best thing you can do.
Yep.
Absolutely. No, you guys are awesome. I really appreciate all those answers are phenomenal, and I think that's exactly what we need to be doing. And I'm just so thankful again for both the time, and I think the time that you guys have given me, I've learned so much from both of you, and I'm very thankful for you sharing all your stories with me and your perspective.
Well done. Yeah.
Absolutely. But before we go, I want to know, I'll start with Chanel, but Chanel, how can people contact you if they want to learn more about the things that we discussed?
So I have an Instagram account, and my name is Miss Chanel Fyffe. So that's MSCHANEL FYFFE. And that's my Instagram. I only have Instagram right now.
That's all right. I think I use Instagram so much, and I use it more than everything else, and it's an incredible social media tool. What about you, Jay?
Yeah, my personal Instagram is I basically use Instagram too. It's Think Superior, so that's ThinkSuperior, and it's just like the way I hold myself. I always try to think better for the next day, better, keep on thinking that. And so it's at Think Superior, and then the movie channel, it's its own thing. It's at Perspective, the short film. And right now, if you go on there, you can find the movie for rent.
That's incredible. Guys, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Kristof.
All right, see ya.
Okay, bye.
Take care.